Tonight on News 5 Live, the string of explosive text messages between John Saldivar and Jacob Kingston. We have them and we'll share them with you. In Belmopan, Minister of State Elodio Aragon takes over administrative duties of the Ministry of National Security. PUP leader John Briceño announces a national demonstration against the Barra administration and the rampant corruption in government. Charges against David Chi and co-accused men in a drug plane landing are dismissed. Former Assistant Commissioner Miguel Segura is also freed from charges of manslaughter by negligence. The Ministry of Health introduces a comprehensive plan to deal with any outbreak of the coronavirus in Belize. And the health of the Belize Barrier Reef has improved. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
The Belize Bank
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Thursday, February 13th. I am Charlie Hutchinson. We have heard about the text messages between John Saldivar and Jacob Kingston. Well, tonight we will share them with you. The string of texts were presented in the Utah court on Tuesday. There are 33 in all and was the evidence that led to the fall of John Saldivar as UDP party leader-elect as well as Minister of National Security. The messages are about the money Saldivar was seeking from Lev Derman, which Jacob Kingston sent to Miami and Saldivar was to pick up from an associate named Daryl. The copy of the messages was secured through our friend Nate Carlisle from the Salt Lake Tribune. Here is Hipólito Novello with a report.
These are the text messages sent to and from confessed fraudster Jacob Kingston and disgraced UDP cabinet minister John Saldivar. 33 text messages were sent and received between February 11th and February 16, 2014. On February 11th, Saldivar casually texts Kingston, "Hey Jacob." Kingston's response, "Hello." "How are things?" Saldivar asks Kingston, who replies, "Good. Who is this?" The response, "John Saldivar, brother." Saldivar goes on to tell Kingston that he is nervous because he has commitments for that week and he has not heard of the infamous Lev Derman. Kingston informed Saldivar that he, along with Derman, had recently returned from Turkey. Saldivar says, "Okay." Kingston does not respond. Almost an hour later on the same day, Saldivar reignites the conversation, telling Kingston that 4 of his candidates have been successful in conventions already. I've noticed that during that time, there weren't any conventions occurring. The message goes unanswered. Saldivar texts Kingston again an hour later, telling Kingston that, quote, "It's looking real good so far, but I'm out of cash," unquote. Minutes after, Kingston asks Saldivar, "What can I do?" Saldivar tells Kingston that he needs the February tranche. "Can I wire?" Kingston asks Saldivar. Akasha Saldivar responds, quote, "Not sure that's a good idea." Kingston asks for instructions. Saldivar tells him that he could fly to Miami on February 12th. Kingston tells him that he'll send some money to Miami. "Tell me how much to send," Kingston asks Saldivar. Saldivar tells him, quote, "Usually it's $25K, but perhaps it's best to deal with the March at the same time," unquote. The message goes unanswered. "You dare?" Saldivar asks Kingston. Saldivar gets Kingston to confirm his request for the February and March tranches. That's $50,000. Saldivar also confirms that he will travel the following day to Miami. According to Kingston, he saw Lev Derman hand over to Saldivar stacks of cash. On February 16, Kingston asked Saldivar if he got what he needed. Saldivar responds, "Yes, buddy. Enough thanks." Reporting for News 5, Hipólito Novello.
John Saldivar was elected as the next leader of the UDP on Sunday at a convention with all the bells and whistles, and he portrayed himself as the future of the party. But all that soon came crashing down. Within 3 days, he had lost the top UDP post and suspended for an indefinite period from cabinet. 24 hours later, John Saldivar called it quits as Minister of National Security. The decision to only suspend him from cabinet triggered calls for his firing, suggesting that the Prime Minister did not do enough since the release of incriminating text messages in the Utah court that he took money from accused fraudster Lev Derman. In the past, Saldivar had survived numerous scandals, including one involving his relationship with accused murderer William Danny Mason. But the ongoing Derman saga turned out to be the last straw. News 5's Isani Caetano reports.
The political maelstrom that swept through cabinet over the past few days has left in its wake an acute self-consciousness for the UDP government. Prime Minister Barrow told Belizeans in mid-January that swift action would be taken should any member of his administration be found blameworthy for having accepted monies from accused fraudster Lev Derman. And then, lied when asked about it in cabinet. On Wednesday, he suspended John Saldivar indefinitely. It followed an assertion made by Jacob Kingston that monies were paid to government officials on behalf of Derman in an attempt to ultimately obtain diplomatic immunity.
The allegations contained assertions that Belizean officials were paid by Derman and his associates in connection with Derman's efforts to obtain Belizean nationality and a Belizean diplomatic passport and ambassadorial or consular status.
Those allegations were substantiated on Tuesday when Kingston took the stand and testified in the courtroom of Judge Jill Parrish, providing evidence that monies were indeed paid out to National Security Minister John Saldivar during a transaction in Miami.
I know that there's nothing that's going to come from that that's going to affect me in any negative way. I've always maintained my innocence.
He continues to do so. However, the string of text messages between Kingston and Saldivar was damning, corroborating the claim made against the Belmopan-era representative. That piece of evidence turned out to be the smoking gun that many, including PM Barrow, were anticipating.
The testimony given in the trial this Monday and Tuesday by one Jacob Kingston has proved, to say the least, explosive. Kingston incriminated Minister John Saldivar in particular and produced text messages in support of his evidence relating to the allegations he made against Minister Saldivar.
Since an emergency meeting held with Cabinet, as well as all 31 standard bearers of the United Democratic Party on Wednesday, Saldivar has turned in his resignation. That was done earlier this afternoon when the Office of the Prime Minister received a formal letter in which Saldivar indicated that his departure was with immediate effect. This comes hard on the heels of an indefinite suspension placed on him, as well as a request for Saldivar to abdicate his post as newly elected leader of the United Democratic Party.
The UDP will, in due time, choose a new leader-elect for the party.
There are no indications who that individual is, but a few names are already being mentioned, including the possibility that Deputy Party Leader Hugo Pat or Second Deputy Leader Beverly Williams may also be eyeing the coveted seat.
People can apply to be the leader, and of course under the UDP constitution, anyone from the National Assembly can express their interest in becoming leader, or no, maybe the Honorable Hugo Pat or the Honorable Beverly Williams, having been elected on Sunday, could decide that they want that leadership spot.
In looking back, Saldivar's fall from grace has been swift, sudden, and hard, despite the fact that it was all predicted. Had he come clean when asked by his colleagues if he accepted monies from Derman, perhaps it would have been an entirely different outcome, and his political career would now be hanging in the balance. Likewise, one cannot help but wonder what must be going through the minds of his many supporters, those who voted as delegates as well as those who financed his campaign in hopes of collecting on those favors somewhere in the not-too-distant future. All things said, Saldivar's short-lived success at Sunday's convention was nothing more than a Pyrrhic victory. In the process of unseating Patrick Farber to become the next UDP leader and prospective Prime Minister, he has lost everything, including his credibility and integrity. In explaining his resignation, Saldivar says, quote, he will now give himself an opportunity to get out from under the cloud of suspicion resulting from the barrage of accusation leveled against him. He expressed the hope of regaining the confidence of the public and the support of Cabinet once he has cleared his name, unquote. Reporting for News 5, I am Isana Cayetano.
The People's United Party today called a press conference to discuss the state of the nation and called out the Prime Minister to deliver his promise that he would fire any of his cabinet ministers who received monies from accused fraudster Lev Derman. The text messages reveal that John Saldivar, who served as the UDP's leader-elect for 3 days, went to Miami to get $50,000 on February 12, 2014. The scandal and controversy surrounding the UDP is the creation of Prime Minister himself, says Caribbean Shores Area Representative Kareem Musa.
Like a Netflix series, we have been gripped by the chaos, drama, and disaster that Dean Barrow has designed and directed, pretending as usual that he is just trying to do the right thing. But this is not a movie. This is not make-believe. This is real Belizean meltdown, nationally and internationally. And we are not just spectators. This is us. This is happening to us, we the people. Dean Barrow is our modern Frankenstein. John Saldivar is his latest monster creation. And the sick reality, when you think of all the little monsters with names like Penner, Vega, Castro, and Shine, that Dean Barrow has created, we must now realize that he is the big monster in the room, Frankenstein himself. Last year, a Belize city man was sentenced to 4 months in jail for stealing a $4.75 can of corned beef. There are hundreds of examples of the Prime Minister and the Financial Secretary breaking the law.
Straight into it.
And at the end of this long list of crimes committed, no other than the highest judge in our land, the Chief Justice of Belize, has found that the $1.5 billion, billion with a B, billion like in Barrow, was wrongfully spent. For 12 years, the UDP ignored, underfunded, and undermined in the Integrity Commission, the Public Accounts Committee, the Auditor General's Office, and the Contractor General's Office. These key agencies, which were established to protect and safeguard the people's money, were deliberately neglected by Dean Barrow and the UDP so that they could spend as they wish in the dark of the night with zero oversight. Thankfully, the Chief Justice has come down hard and has said, "Not so fast, Mr. Barrow. Freeze and put your hands up against the wall." What the UDP has done to Belize is far worse than the coronavirus. This is no joke. Dean Barrow has contaminated our system of governance and accountability with a $1.5 billion series of unconstitutional crimes. And the disease of criminality and corruption will continue to spread unless we decide to quarantine that virus. The media and the people can now see deep inside Frankenstein's laboratory. And it is full of blood on the floor. There is only one vaccine that can stop this virus from spreading further, and that is the vote.
Prime Minister Dean Barrow and his cabinet in 2008 were elected on the platform that they would eradicate corruption. PM Barrow himself had gone on record to say that he would use his two-sided machete to chop the head of corruption, but as the public has seen, corruption is thriving within government. The Prime Minister later went on record to say that corruption will always be in government. Today, the opposition People's United Party also promised that corruption in government will be dealt with swiftly. Leader John Briceño says that several steps will be taken to eradicate corruption.
We're not doing like Dean Barrow said, "Oh, we are ending corruption, I got a machete." I am telling you, these are some steps that we're going to take to put in place in government so that we can then be able to fight against corruption. And then, if we don't do it, you have something to tell me. You told us you're going to this. We're not be like Barrow, "Oh, and take out the machete." Here are some steps that we're going to take that we can show to you and demonstrate that we're serious about fighting corruption in government.
Sir, how do you guys restore faith in the profession that is politicians? Because they used to be larger-than-life heroes. Now they're synonymous with possible criminals.
What this UDP government has done to the whole issue of public service has really cast a huge black cloud over all people that want to serve. And whilst there may be some bad apples, like in everything in your family and everywhere, there are genuine people that want to serve this country.
Prime Minister said that corruption will always be in government. Do you believe that under your leadership, corruption can be eradicated?
Well, my commitment to you right now is that we are going to fight corruption at all fronts. And we're going to do everything possible to end the corruption.
Are you prepared to see any of your cabinet colleagues go to jail?
I would not want to see any of my colleagues in jail, but we have been talking about that over and over, and everybody is quite aware that when we change these laws and we implement these laws, I would not be able to help them. Nobody will be able to help them, and they'll have to fend for themselves.
The People's United Party is mobilizing to hold a national demonstration against corruption in government and other ills. Leader John Briceño sounded the clarion this morning as the fallout from the John Saldivar saga continues to unravel. Briceño invited the social partners, the private sector, and all Belizeans to join and march in Belize City. The PUP has not had a demonstration for some time, so the event is expected to galvanize its supporters and show muscle as the government in waiting. Here is News 5's Hipólito Novello with a report.
The People's United Party is seizing the day, and leader John Briceño has given the orders to the party's 31 standard bearers to mobilize the masses for a national demonstration against the rampant corruption that has been plaguing the UDP government. Scandals are at a boiling point, and the opposition is ready to take it to the streets.
The time for talking is at an end. Yesterday, I directed all our standard bearers to begin intense efforts to culminate with a massive mobilization through the streets of Belize. And on Monday, we are going to announce that date so that we could get all citizens, PUP, UDP, social partners, private sector, to join together, to join as Belizeans, and to ensure to tell Barrow in one word, enough is enough, end of the corruption.
Supported by a room filled by PUP-era representatives, executive members, and supporters, Briceño says that the demonstration should take place within a week from Monday. The PUP will march in the old capital where every single Belizean can express their displeasure.
Not only the PUPs, but even the private sector, the social partners, the NGO community, everybody who wants to join to show a displeasure to how Dean Barrow and the UDP have been managing this country can join us on that day.
So do you believe that the Belizeans are ready to come out to the streets? Because as you may know, some political supporters are very loyal to their party.
Well, that's for them to decide. If they are tired of the corruption, if they want to see a difference in how we do things in this country, how we manage the finances of the people, to see that we start to bring more competence and more accountability and to try to bring an end to corruption, then they have a responsibility as a citizen of this country to come out and march as a group. It's not going to be just a PUP demonstration, it's going to be a demonstration by the people of this country. And I think that is what is important for everybody to understand.
However, it will take money to amass that amount of people in the old capital.
Well, we all know that, and then we have to see how we can do that with the little that we have. But what is important is to show our outrage.
And that outrage, Briceño says, should be rooted in what he describes as a gross mismanagement of the country's finances and the latest revelations of bribery added to the Saldivar scandal.
The effects of this UDP government has caused a decade of fear and suffering. It ends now. We will no longer allow criminals to hold the office of Prime Minister in this country.
It's the last time I shall be addressing a UDP.
We will not wait for the government to act. We have no confidence that they will. Imagine $1.5 billion, man, and $100 million that they spent, and they forgot to bring it to the house. How can we allow that to continue? And when we have the present Minister of Police, the Minister of National Security, one is saying on indefinite suspension, but the other one saying he's still the Minister of Police. How can you have the police investigate their own boss? The Prime Minister is taking us for a mockery, for fools. And I think people have had enough.
But has the public had enough to allow the PUP to reign in government once more? The party's national demonstration will indicate if the country truly craves a new government.
What we were accused back then to what is happening now is far worse. I'm not in any way suggesting that it was, but today it is far worse. And what makes it even, as we say, as we Creole in Creole parlance, we say, what makes it worse, Sarah, is that the Prime Minister was elected on a platform to end corruption in government. He talked about two-sided machete, and that they chop off the head and damn the party, you know, if something go wrong, make the party block up or the government because he's going to stop corruption. And here we have case after case from Gaspar Vega to Castro to Pena to the immigration scandal to the issues in lands where Gaspar Vega's son still owed $400,000 and refused to give back the people money. And the list can go on. If citizens want to use an excuse because of back then and do nothing about that, then that's their prerogative. I am telling you that we in the PUP we are saying that we simply cannot continue to manage this country like this. I don't care what anybody say, and the skepticism is merited, and I understand. But that is why today we are starting to put some steps.
Sir, whenever the election is called, if the People's United Party fails on that day, would you resign as the party leader?
Why would you ask such a leading question? Of course I will resign. I mean, but I don't think it's a matter of losing. I am very, very confident that we're going to win the next government.
Reporting for News 5, Hipólito Novello.
Along with a national demonstration, the People's United Party also unveiled its strategic plan to effectively deal with corruption in government. Leader John Briceño says that policies will be implemented along with the amendments of legislation that aim to seize criminal and improper activities in government. Briceño says that under a PUP administration, UNCAC will be implemented and the offices of government agencies such as the Auditor General Office, the Contractor General, and the Integrity Commission will be well resourced to keep accountability and transparency in government.
We will ensure an independent public accounts committee, one that's strengthened so that substantive ministers cannot be members of the PAC. As well, all House committee meetings, including PAC meetings, will be opened to the public and streamed live. Second, the Integrity Commission must do its job effectively. To do so, it should no longer be controlled by the party in government. Likewise, we will put in place a mechanism to ensure the financial independence of the Integrity Commission with a budget to be approved directly by the National Assembly. They need the tools and personnel to get the job done. Third, the recent crisis of misappropriation of government funds is a clear indication that we need a strong and independent office of the Auditor General. The next PUP government will ensure that the Auditor General Office has unrestricted access to information and with full powers of investigation, including subpoena powers, to ensure that requests for information and documentations are complied with expeditiously. The Auditor General's Office will be permitted to submit their budget directly to the National Assembly for approval. Most important, we will ensure that the Auditor General is allowed to present reports directly to the National Assembly and not only to the Prime Minister. Fourth, the PUP will not only implement UNCAC, but we will also enact campaign finance legislation. In the first 100 days, the new PUP government will direct the Office of the Attorney General to draft campaign finance legislation, which will be subject to national consultations and review before a final bill is tabled and passed into law.
There is news from Corozal that the body of a man has been found inside a van on a property located on the Santa Elena Road. According to the reports, the body is in an advanced state of decomposition and the identity of the person is not known. Coming up, charges against top cops are dismissed, and we'll have the Ministry of Health strategic plan on the coronavirus. The case involving 2 cops and 2 Mexican nationals accused of landing a drug plane in the Orange Walk district crumbled today in the Orange Walk court. David Chi, Norman Anthony, Eli Figueroa Nunez, and Azarias Manzano were all charged after a drug plane loaded with cocaine landed in Tres Leguas in September 2018. Today, the court accepted a no-case submission and the men were released. Of note is that it is one of the very few times that police have actually been able to seize drugs and make arrests in the escalating number of drug plane landings. But the case fell apart. Here is News 5's Dwayne Moody with a report.
Former Orange Walk Police Commander David Chi and his co-accused are free after the court dismisses charges against them for carrying out an illicit plane landing on September 9, 2018 in Tres Leguas near Blue Creek. That's the news coming out of Orange Walk today following a no-case submission by the attorneys for the accused men. In early January of this year, the trial for Chi and Police Constable Norman Anthony and Mexican nationals Eli Figueroa Nunez and Azarias Manzano continued before Senior Magistrate Patricia Arana. A 5th person, Peter Friesen Jr., was initially charged along with the Mexicans for importing drugs into Belize and drug trafficking. But back in May of 2019, those charges were dropped against Friesen Jr., who became a witness for the Crown. Attorney for David Chi, David Morales, explains how the case was dismissed against his clients and the co-accused men.
There was one more witness that the Crown needed to call, Mr. Peter Friesen. He didn't appear yesterday, so a bench warrant was issued for his arrest, day before yesterday, sorry, to give the Crown time to get him there. He didn't show up, so the Crown closed its case, and we proceeded to make no case submissions as a result of that.
Attorney Morales says that there was no evidence against his client because he was never discovered at the scene, nor was he identified as being involved during the trial.
There was no evidence whatsoever against Mr. Chi. No one identified him as being a person involved in anything. He was never put at the scene, so there was no evidence, any at all, and I based my submissions on that. And the court agreed with me and also indicated that there was no evidence whatsoever against Mr. Chi, which is something that we had maintained from day one. So the court upheld my submissions and the case was dismissed.
During the trial, we are told that 11 of 19 witness statements were used. The 2 Mexicans were charged for importing drugs into the country, but that charge too was dismissed and they were free to go. Back in January, attorney for Figueroa, Dickie Bradley, said that he did not expect a lengthy trial, but did he anticipate this outcome?
2 Mexicans were put through a terrible ordeal. They supposedly were involved in the matter. I say supposedly, allegedly. The charge against them is one single charge. You conspired to abet to commit a crime. Conspiracy is a crime, abetment is a crime, bringing drugs into the country is a crime. So then you do this, we do this, we do this. Nobody caught him in the plane or at the plane site or with any drugs or anything like that. He just needs to clarify that they are saying that he had known about the plane. So if we look like we're going to drag on when we come back again, then I would have no choice but in fairness to him.
So what happens now for the vindicated former police commander David Chi and PC Norman Anthony, who were placed on administrative leave and then indicted for their alleged involvement?
The matter is still before the Public Service Commission, which I believe they will withdraw that matter. But my client has already reached retirement age. So in essence, they don't really have jurisdiction over him in any event. It was just a matter of him to get his perks in terms of his pension, etc. So I get now that the matter has been dismissed and he has been vindicated. There was no evidence whatsoever. I think he will now be able to get what he deserves after 30-odd years of service to the police force.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
In the Belmopan Supreme Court, another former high-ranking cop was freed of charges. Former Deputy Commissioner of Police Miguel Segura was acquitted of the charge of manslaughter by negligence on Succoth's resident Yolanda Valencia and causing negligent grievous harm on Yannick Koo. This morning, the judge accepted a no-case submission on Segura's behalf when the witnesses failed to turn up. The presiding judge directed the jury to acquit Segura, and he walked out of court a free man. Police officers testified that they had served the witnesses with summons to attend court, but there were procedural errors because the summons were served to the wrong persons, and that on another occasion they were served on persons without checking their IDs to verify their identity. In 2014, on the George Price Highway, Segura collided with a taxi driver who was injured while Valencia died. The incident was caught on camera, and the images were not complimentary of Segura, who was charged with 6 charges, including driving a motor vehicle with an alcohol concentration above the prescribed limit. Valencia's family also filed a civil suit and settled with the government to the tune of $78,000. A man wanted for murder in Belize was captured in Puerto Cortes, Honduras. Rodwell Arzu, a resident of Independence Village, has been on the run since July of 2019. Police believe that he pulled the trigger and killed his ex-girlfriend, Geraldine Flowers, in the new site area of Dangriga. It is believed that in an act of jealousy, Arzu murdered Flowers, but not before stabbing and shooting her cousin Samuel Reed, who was inside the house with the deceased at the time. We are being told that Arzu has relatives in Honduras and escaped to that country, but the long arms of the law have finally caught up with him, and he will be returned to Belize. Senior Superintendent Gilberto Romero shares details.
Okay, on Wednesday, the 12th day of February 2020, Rodwell Arzu, who is wanted for the crime of murder in Belize, was captured in Puerto Cortes, Honduras. Arrangements are being made for him to be escorted back to Belize.
What is the timeline in trying to get him transferred from those authorities to Belize?
Okay, it will take a couple of days.
Now, is it believed that he escaped there since the incident?
That is the information we had, that he left the country after the incident.
This morning, the Ministry of Health held its first press conference to discuss COVID-19, formerly known as the coronavirus. Health officials in Belize have been working diligently to come up with a comprehensive strategy should there be an outbreak of the novel virus locally. The epidemiologist Dr. Russell Manzanero gave a brief history of the COVID-19 and when it was first detected in China. He also says that the World Health Organization has declared it a public health emergency.
On January 7th, 2020, Chinese authorities identified a new type of coronavirus, which is now termed COVID-19, from a cluster of pneumonia cases in Wuhan City, Hubei province in China. It is a new strain of coronavirus and has not been previously identified in humans. There was an initial case to have thought that it was linked to a human sea market in that city. However, there is still, as we had mentioned, ongoing studies and investigations that are probably alluding to something else. There is now evidence, though, that there is human-to-human transmission. Globally, all cases have had a history to Wuhan and China or have had a close contact with a confirmed case. On the 30th of January, WHO Director General declared the outbreak of COVID-19 a public health emergency of international concern. And to date, we have 24 countries that now have ongoing transmission. What is likely is that exported cases of COVID-19 are expected to occur, particularly with the degree of mobilization and travel.
According to Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero, the Ministry of Health has been working closely with NEMO in coming up with a course of action to combat an outbreak, and that the Emergency Management Organization has attended several meetings in an effort to prepare its personnel in the case of an outbreak.
What, if any, is the involvement of the National Emergency Management Organization in any plan going forward should there be an outbreak of COVID, or whenever that does? Is there any plan of action that includes this particular organization?
They did participate in, because I have kind of lost track of the many meetings that we have had, and I know you had one just yesterday, and there's one happening right now at the Northern Health Region. But they did come, NEMO, to the surveillance meeting we had at national level last week, Tuesday or Wednesday. They have been engaged, just like with the dengue situation. You might not be aware that they provided some level of support when we ran out of hospital bed capacity in Southern Health Region. They provided the cots that would you routinely be using for a hurricane situation. So we had patients in cots at Southern Health Region. So they are aware. Granted, they don't have Ministry of Health table, if you will, but we have representation at the NEMO subcommittees to be able to flag it for them for whenever their situation or their response is required. Whenever it's going to be declared an emergency beyond what the Ministry of Health is able, then it becomes a national situation. They would be alerted.
From an immigration and border management perspective, Horace Guzman described the incident that happened at the Philip Goldson International Airport over the weekend. He says that while the 12 Asian nationals who arrived on Saturday were held at the PGIA overnight, they were kept in isolation inside the old VIP room at the airport.
From what I was told, the persons of Asian descent arrived. They were returned back because they provided false information, untrue information to the immigration officers upon being questioned. That is an offense, and it's grounds for refusal. So we refuse them both based on those grounds that they provided wrong information to us through the interpreter. I would prefer to yield to Ms. Kurt maybe after the press conference, because she is the port commander at the airport and she was on the ground and she's right at the back. But that was what happened at the airport.
But was there some reluctance on behalf of the carrier, American Airlines, to take them back?
At first, yes, but we insisted that those persons had to return back to Miami from where they came, and that instructions was complied with.
But in the meantime, they had to sleep in the airport.
Yes,
which is not.
They stayed at the airport.
Which closes at midnight.
Blankets and other amenities were provided to them for them to stay. They actually stayed at the VIP lounge at the airport.
After the break, PUP calls for an audit for the Petrocaribe money.
With over 100 years of service excellence in